All right, so we were here with Sterling. Sterling, we met last year. You had a different car, but this year we've got the really exciting one, the Lambo. I think I've walked by this thing about 36 times in the last hour alone, just because it's that cool. How long have you been working on this for?
Actually, the entire project has taken about 8 years, but it's built from scratch.
Right.
So everybody asks if there's a car chassis underneath it. It's all a bespoke frame.
Oh wow!
Welded in my garage. Same with the suspension and everything.
So this is So there's no, with the exception of
the
steering
there's some
wheel.
Lamborghini. There's legit Lamborghini parts in it. Actually, they donated the steering wheel, the dash, and the headlights.
Nice.
And then I got some of the other parts off of eBay.
Okay, nice. So 3D printed. Obviously, you can't just drive raw 3D prints around, right?
Correct.
So I'm assuming there's probably some sort of post-processing after you print them and glue it together. Do you fiberglassing, carbon fiber?
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass, okay.
So the main body, the gray parts that you see here, are encapsulated in fiberglass.
Okay.
So it's ASA, printed in small sections,
right,
looped together to make a panel, and then we encapsulate it in fiberglass to give it the strength that we need.
All right. So the 3D print, the ASA, just basically acts as a core.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. It actually gives you some sound deadening as a bonus.
Okay, that's a pretty nice nice feature, especially in a car.
Yeah.
You don't want to be driving down the road and hear all that crazy noise.
Exactly.
Rattling. Yeah.
And then the carbon fiber pieces are 3D printed and then skinned in carbon fiber.
Okay.
So they just have a layer of carbon fiber
layer
over
of carbon
the top.
fiber over it.
Yeah.
What kind of engine you got in this guy?
I have an LS1.
Okay.
Yep. So it's from a Corvette. It's attached to a Porsche 911 transaxle.
Okay.
And then it's got.
So you did just.
Yeah. It's got Ford Thunderbird drive shafts, twin turbos.
Okay.
A little extra poop.
Okay.
Yeah. Give it some guts.
So not worried about gas mileage.
No.
No. Speaking of gas mileage, have you actually gotten a chance to take it for a drive?
I drive it around my neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
So
do you think it'll be ready in another year or two, or?
Car projects are never done.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Will it be painted next year? Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to get to.
So it should look a little more polished next year.
A little more polished next year. Every year, get a little bit more polished.
More and more. Well, I can't wait to see it again next year. This thing is absolutely incredible. God, who knows? Maybe next year you'll be able to race it with the drag racers.
Run them over?
Yeah. I mean, they do a pretty good job of running themselves over. So
right.
Those things crash more than they actually ride, but
Oh, there you go. That's the fun part.
Exactly. Well, Sterling, thank you so much again.
Really appreciate it.
This is one of the big reasons I love coming out to Rocky Mountain RepRap Festival, because we get to see awesome projects like this from people who are just passionate about making stuff, and you definitely embody.
You got to be passionate to do something like
passionate,
this.
Yes,
sir.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, you're very welcome.
All right, guys, welcome to the Deposition Sound booth here at Rocky Mountain RepRap Festival 2026. We're fixing a mistake from last year where I stupidly forgot to turn the mics on.
Oh no.
My bad. Sorry, guys.
This thing is on, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's on.
Okay.
Actually, it's on, transmitting, and it's also recording internally as well.
Good.
So, double redundancy this
You're
year.
not gonna miss this thing. That's awesome.
But Deposition Sound you guys design 3D printed speakers.
Yes.
You sell kits to make them, and they sound phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
As someone who has spent way too much money on home theater setups, may or may not have spent an entire yearly bonus upgrading the setup in my bedroom.
Yep.
These things sound fantastic.
Appreciate that.
Maybe just tell us,
Sure.
what possessed you guys to even do this in the first place,
Okay.
and take us from where you started to where we are now,
Okay.
especially with this new guy here. 'cause
Yeah. Well,
we were talking about this last year.
yes. We
Not
have
that
to
you
get to
guys
the
would know
Bluetooth.
about that, but
So we have to get to the Bluetooth, but yeah, I'll back it up a little bit. So we've been doing this for 3.5 years, roughly. What got us started was two things. I want to say space and the availability of tools I had at the time was very limited. And all I had was a 3D printer that my brother sent me. I had gotten into 3D printing well before him, but he kind of fired that engine back up, and I didn't have access to anything else, but I wanted to build speakers again, and I've always been kind of an MDF and plywood speaker builder from back in the day, and I thought, no, let me try this out, and he poked me and said, hey, we should print a speaker.
Why
so
not?
I thought, okay. So I came up with a basic design, simple volumetric enclosure deal, and tweaked the crossover a little bit and hit print on a printer that he sent me, and it just came out great. So I thought initially, oh, it's going to sound plasticky and tinny and boxy.
I mean, my first one did.
Sure, but it's
Mine still do.
they still do. Gosh, but it didn't, and I was surprised. And I thought, okay, what else can we do? Can we stiffen the box? Can we make it punchier? Can we tweak the crossover and have it all attached differently and assembled differently? And we could do all of that in a virtual space, in a digital space, very quickly. So we just iterated super fast.
Also saves money too.
It does save money. Yeah. So from there, we progressed to the FTM Geo, after the FTM Geo to the FTM4, and now more recently, starting since last year, we wanted to branch out into and the FTM Estate. I shouldn't forget about that. So we also have subwoofer.
Okay.
We wanted to branch out into portable audio, so Bluetooth speakers, and that's what we have here. So we have the FDM Duos available in 3 configurations. The Bluetooth configuration, that's that one right there.
Yep, which I heard that one yesterday, and that thing punches way above its weight class.
Oh, for sure. So we have that one. Flip it on its side, like tilt it vertically, and face the tweeters inward. You have the stereo pair, so we're going to sell the stereo kit as well. And then if you just want a center channel or a devoted center channel, same thing, but just buy 1 or 2 woofers and a tweeter. So
because honestly, yesterday when these two were playing yesterday, that caught my eye.
Yeah.
I was hearing with my eyes again. Like,
For sure.
It sounded that good. So
we actually dialed these in to be slightly boosted below 100 hertz.
Okay.
So that I don't want to say it tricks you, but it plays with your idea of sub bass. It plays with kind of the perception of what is low sounding. If you do that below 100 hertz and above 50 or 60 hertz, and boost things there, it's a lot punchier. So it gives the impression of being, a system that already has a subwoofer, but it really doesn't. So, yeah. So it's been a lot of fun to iterate on this and try out different things. And all of these can be printed on a P1S, and more recently the FTM4s and the FTM Duos. You can put that on an A1 Mini, I believe.
Oh wow! So you don't have to have anything fancy.
Nothing too fancy. Yeah.
Your basic printer that everyone has at home, and you can print. Because I've seen the video where Joel made these, and the one thing that drove me crazy about that video, and it's a problem that any video is going to have, is you can't convey the sound quality through a video.
Yeah. You have to be there.
I wish you guys could be here right now.
And even this isn't a great space to be listening to.
No,
speakers,
exactly.
So,
And the fact that they sound good in this kind of horrible acoustic environment is really a testament to how well they're engineered. And you guys sell the kits, all the crossovers, speakers, everything.
Yes.
So all they gotta do is go to Deposition Sound, and they can print out their own speakers.
There you go. Yep.
And you'll be way cooler than just buying them off of Amazon.
Gosh, yeah. And
be fully custom, make it your own.
Exactly. You can custom it.
Own colors, and we recommend PET G.
PET G.
Don't have to get crazy with the filament either. It can be a PLA if you want. It's not. You'll see small differences depending on what filament you choose to use, but you don't need something exotic to make this sound good. So
probably don't use TPU. I'm assuming.
Don't use TPU.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be.
It
Probably
has to be a rigid filament. Something rigid that can at least be printed on something that's open air. So
exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for letting me make up for my boo-boo last year.
No worries.
You guys were some of the nicest, coolest people I met last year, so I'm glad that we got to do this properly.
Thank you for giving us the platform and the ability to talk about it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And clap.
All right, we're good.
Okay.
All right, so we're here with Steve from HueForge. I've seen you guys at a couple shows, and it's always been crazy busy. I haven't been able to get here, so we're taking advantage of this slight lull.
Yeah.
Steve, can you tell us what possessed you to even make HueForge? What was the whole thought process? Like, what was like that idea that was like, hey, this would be cool?
So someone asked me, actually a family member asked me for a decorative print.
Okay.
He wanted it backlit, and he wanted a decorative print, and I printed it, and it came out great. But it was and I didn't know why it came out great, but it was
Right.
and it took forever in the slicer to make the adjustments I thought it needed.
It's okay, you're good.
And then I did a few more test prints on other images, and I couldn't recreate it. And I've been a software developer my entire career, so I said I can write something to figure this out.
Okay.
So that's how I got started.
Nice. And I mean, I got a little demo of how it works. I'll be honest, when I first looked at the software, I was like, oh, that looks confusing, but it was really simple to use. And I think that's one of the reasons why HueForge is so popular, is because it is very easy to use.
I think it's one of those things though that some people just get it and some people don't when they open it up. And the thing we always tell people is start simple. Don't start with some multicolor image you want an exact copy of.
Exactly.
Just make a simple print with 3 or 4 colors, dark to light.
Right.
And just do that print, get that print out and do it, and then make adjustments. And I had someone talk to me. They said, "Look, I was so worried about screwing it up that I wouldn't print anything. And until I finally printed something, I didn't realize that it really wasn't a big deal, and I could just go and do it a couple times."
Exactly. So I'm definitely gonna have to give it a try when I get home. 'Cause
Awesome.
There's a couple of things I'd like to do. That bee picture back there.
Oh,
my
yeah.
goodness, that is amazing.
Yeah, Ian makes great work.
Yeah. So I'll definitely be checking it out. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be checking out HueForge when I get home.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now Esther's going to show us how to use the HueForge software, which is good because I've taken a quick look at it, but my small brain just went, it's probably a lot easier than it looks.
It is easier than it looks if you have spent quite a bit of time in it, but we'll take you through one of the basic modes of HueForge, which is the standard mode, blending up from dark to light. You would pop an image into HueForge by dragging it from a folder or a site and drag it into here. The source image will pop up here on the right side of the software, and then the software will generate a mesh for you that will look like this.
Okay.
Now what you want to do is then you decide, look, do I want the color to match the image? Do I want to spice it up a little bit? Do I want to pop a little flair to it or whatever you want? But at this point, let's do it like it's a blue kind of image. Let's do a blue kind of file at the end,
Okay.
right?
Nice.
So what HueForge does is, like I said, it builds the mesh and you decide how you want the final product to look. Now, for example, if this looks a bit off for you, like, oh, the shadows are a bit too dark. I don't like how that's super dark. You can take the black down a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And then
That's pretty easy.
And now you're looking at it and you're like, well, I want the highlights to be a bit highlighty. And so you add a couple of layers of white to it to bring the surface up a little more.
Okay.
And then by doing that, the mesh also changes because you've added a couple layers of white to it.
Right. So it'll maybe get a little thicker or thinner depending on
what you like to see at
Okay.
the end product. Now, if you look at this and you go, all right, this looks good, but at 1.68 millimeters, that's either too thick or too thin. Maybe you say, oh, it's too thick. I want it to be a little
want it to be a little
thin.
thinner. All right.
You can also just drag this down because this is in dynamic mesh mode. So it dynamically adjusts the mesh according to how you put your colors in.
Okay.
So now you dragged, all right, now it's about 1.5 mils. That's all right. And now you're like, now that looks weird because the colors look weird. So you just readjust your colors.
All right. So you're just dragging and sliding around
You're just
until you
dragging
find
and
something that
sliding
you like.
until you. So it's kind of like what you want out of the picture.
Right.
Whether or not you want it to be exactly the same or not, like it's up to you.
Okay.
And then if you look at this and go, look, all right, the blue's kind of cool, but what if I wanted it to be red? Now you have a filament library here.
Okay.
It's populated by both your filament library, but also the HueForge default filament library. So if you take in the effort, you put in the effort and put your own filaments in there, you can then just put like, I have this really cool red that I want to use, and you know that you put it in your filament library. So like, all right, let's put this copy master red in here. I don't want it to look blue anymore. And it will then predict your output the way that you want it. So now because it's a red, nope, let's not do that. Because it's a red one, then you want to go back to pink for the lighter hues, right?
Okay.
So you just pick a copy master pink again. And now you've got a pink kind of image.
wow. So,
And so you choose how you
Right.
want your output to look
so
like.
even though the original image was blue, I
Yeah.
could make it pink or
Yeah,
purple
exactly.
or whatever
And
color I
whatever
want.
color you want. And that is because the program is not looking at the color of the image when it's generating the mesh. It is looking at the luminance levels of the image.
Okay.
So whatever color you put in this standard mode anyway, it is taking the luminance level. So all the darker colors will be at the bottom, and all the
Right.
lighter colors will be at the top. And so it builds the mesh that way. So if you know that, you can be like, all right, all the darker colors at the bottom. I'm going to put all the dark greens and the browns and the dark blues at the bottom, and then the lighter colors on top, and it will get you something like this.
Nice, that's pretty cool.
And then you save the project. The project will give you an STL. You drop the STL into the printer, and then you hit describe, and then you follow the instructions.
Oh, so it just gives
It gives you everything you need to program the slicer to give you the output that you want. So for this particular one, it says start with black. So at the bottom, after you've sliced your project,
right.
in the little bar on the side on Bamboo Studio Orca
Right.
Slicer, you put in, at layer 11, you put in a filament swap.
Okay, so
at layer
yeah.
16, you put in a filament swap. At layer 22, you swap to white.
Oh, so we don't have to deal with 3MF files or nothing. You just
You drop the SCL in there.
and then you just manually tell it, hey, this layer, this layer, this layer,
Yep.
and then you get a really cool image out of it from your 3D printer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So easy, even I could do it.
Anyone can do it.
Wow. I might have to give that a try when I get home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for taking the time to show me the software. It's
No problem.
significantly easier than I originally thought.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's easy when you have a really good image to start with.
Right.
It's all image dependent, obviously.
It's also a lot easier when you've got a really good person to explain it. So, well, thank you so much.
Not a problem. It was a pleasure.